the symposium. I think everything so far has worked out very, very nicely. And especially thanks to Kim for coming to Comox, hearing our story, and again providing us an opportunity to shed a little bit of light on what we've been up to in terms of restorative creek work and our involvement. My story is a bit of a personal journey, but a collective journey as well, and it comes more in keeping with keeping up the partnership theme, and ultimately building and nurturing those relationships along the way. It's kind of a common thread that I've heard throughout the presentations, hearing words like cooperation and partnerships and relationships and working together. I don't think that many of these projects could really come to fruition unless that philosophy is held at the forefront of our minds. So bear with me, off we go on a little bit of a journey. And it relates to the power of partnerships and the Brooklyn Creek story. So, the partnership by definition, the state of being a partner, participation, a legal relation existing between two or more persons contractually associated as joint principals in a business, a relationship resembling a legal partnership and usually involving close cooperation between parties having specified or joint rights and responsibilities. When I look at the definition of partnership and put it into the context of how it applies to the Brooklyn Creek Watershed storyline, the word that really resonates the most with me is participation. And the participation borne by the participation that we've seen along the way and continues to grow out there is quite staggering. I believe that participation is born by interest, and interest is born by intuition, context, content, and imagination. When I look back some 30 years and reflect on my involvement with Brooklyn Creek, I can't help but to remind myself that what stands before us today is truly a remarkable and important natural community asset. It's loved and cared for by many. It's crafted by the determination and dedication of people and agencies willing to embrace opportunity and work toward a common goal. The asset we call Brooklyn Creek Watershed stands testament to the power of partnerships and the value derived from those relationships. Perception. What was once viewed in the early days by some as a simple and convenient urban drainage conveyance, others view it as a genuine opportunity. An opportunity presented by way of recognizing the fact that the watershed was much more dynamic and full of potential as it relates to the community value than first imagined decades ago. As our community steadily developed, so did the encouragement and the support for protecting and enhancing our natural open spaces. Subtle improvements made over time garnered the attention of the public, and the public spoke loud and clear that what they saw before them was truly a cherished asset and of great benefit to the community and ultimately to the region. As time progressed and public interest intensified, our politicians and community leaders took notice, recognized how closely aligned their love for the watershed was with that of the public. This recognition created an opening for fruitful discussion, clear staff direction, financial support from local and other senior levels of government, and we recognized that the winds of change were clearly upon us. As support and momentum for enhancing the watershed experience gained traction, those intuitive and imaginative participants came forward looking for ways to help. The cross-section of people willing to volunteer their time was and still is inspirational, to say the least. Gone were the days of just simply breaking up log jams and addressing localized erosion and flooding. A new, more inclusive approach to stream management emerged, an approach embraced by a whole host of participants willing to put in the time and effort, participants willing to make a change. Let me please explain what I consider a new inclusive approach to stream management. I look at the Brooklyn Creek Watershed through a slightly different lens than what I did when first starting out with the Town of Comox back in the early 80s. Back then, our three-person parks crew at the time worked in virtual isolation in the watershed, conducting routine flood prevention work devoid of any interaction or participation with others. It wasn't really much of an inclusive approach. And I use the term inclusive approach in the sense that the more perspectives, points of view, and talent base we can draw on, the more interesting and ultimately successful our stream management practices became. Partnerships come in many forms. Brooklyn Creek Watershed Enhancement Story contains many chapters, dynamic in nature, much the same as the creek is itself. Each chapter contains content and messaging that speaks to the fact that every aspect of what has transpired over the years in terms of restorative creek enhancement were influenced by and resultant of good people working together. From community engagement to funding, bridge building to trail construction, artwork to regulatory signage, the end products reveal the telltale signs that many individuals and agency played pivotal roles in shaping the watershed and its enhanced sense of place. The partnerships created over time have turned into long-standing relationships, and they've been based on common goals, respectful dialogue, and many hours of hard work, a diverse collection of perspectives bundled up and broadcast across the watershed landscape, each stakeholder acknowledged in very subtle ways. The Brooklyn Creek Corridor Restoration and Enhancement Project would not have been possible without the help of many dedicated individuals and organizations. A great team and wonderful mix of backgrounds and disciplines helped create the overall strategy leading up to the physical works that we see in place today. Teams of consultants, school children, stewardship groups, homeowners, local government, senior levels of government. It's quite an incredible mix of participants. School kids and scholars, politicians, constituents, stewardship groups, service clubs, they're all there and they all help in immense ways. If we continue to work together, make time for one another, and continue to nurture the relationship born by partnership along the way, we can rest assured that our collective investment will surely pay dividends down the road. Because I'm a gardener, I have to use some gardening analogies to bring this back around. And so propagating new and maintaining old partnerships kind of fits in with my background as a horticulturalist, and I had to take the chance to use it. so forgive me. I'd like to use a simple garden analogy to capture what I believe to be an important approach to propagating new and maintaining old relationships. Firstly, we have to plant the seed. We need to remind each other periodically that the work never ends, new ideas and opportunities are welcome, and that we should take the time to engage our local educators and school children and propagate a new crop of watershed stewards. 2, nurture. Care for the process, project, and product, but also those people and partnerships that have contributed to the success of what has been accomplished. Harvest. Gather those around you, introduce and showcase your involvement, share in your experience, having reaped the rewards. To me, the Brooklyn Creek Watershed experience, as I like to call it, is similar to watching your garden grow. You know that the seeds have been planted, you have provided a safe and welcome place for them to emerge and strengthen, and you are committed to nursing them along to maturity. In closing, I would just like to say that the Brooklyn Creek Restoration Project has been a long and rewarding journey for me and for others. It's been one full of determination, optimism, and hope, and it's been a collective vision shared by many with an action plan influenced and executed by the power of partnerships. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. Christine Hodgson. I'm a director with the Brooklyn Creek Watershed Society. We're a small nonprofit society with a whole bunch of volunteers. We're just one of many partners that work with the Town of Comox on this particular project. Our operating budgets are about $1,000 a year. That's just to maintain our website and volunteer and direct insurance, so we're not a large organization by any means. You've seen this map before. Shout out to Ian Wu, who actually put it together. But it shows where Brooklyn Creek is, so the shaded area. So it gives you an idea of the watershed with the blue line showing you where the creek actually occurs. And we like to say that's sort of divided into thirds. So you have 1/3 that is in Comox, the lower third. The middle third is mostly in the regional district, but also in the town of Comox. And then the upper third is in the city of Courtenay. And I just wanted to do a shout out that there are, in the audience today, there are staff from Courtenay and also from the Comox Valley Regional District. So we've been happy recipients of all sorts of attention. We didn't ask for it, but in 2018, we received an award called Keeping It Living Award, which is an award that's presented by Comox Valley Project Watershed to local stewardship groups for the work that they've done. And we were, for the work that we do in terms of restoring and protecting the watersheds, as just one of the many nonprofit societies do in Comox Estuary. And then also, as you know, the Brooklyn Creek was featured as an ecological accounting protocol. So Brooklyn Creek supports many fish. So we have coho smolts, that's in the upper left, little sticklebacks on the right, and then also cutthroat trout that is on the lower down. Spawning in the stream are chum salmon and also coho salmon. And those of you that know lake fisheries, you know that coho salmon spawn in the streams, and then the fry reside in the stream for 1 year before they out-migrate as smolts. So the habitat that's within the stream is important. So the Town of Comox undertook this channel enhancement project between 2005 and 2017 on the lower reaches of the Brooklyn Creek. It's contained in a gully, so it's a nice park area. And their goals were to decrease the risk of channel destabilization, increase productivity and survival of the coho and resident trout, and to improve trails and public safety qualities. And some of the things that Brooklyn Creek Watershed Society is able to access funding for enhancement work on the stream and riparian areas. So we coordinate with volunteers to work and to increase the public awareness of the value of Brooklyn Creek and to as a natural asset. So there's a couple ways in which stream modification can occur. And so this is a straight section of the stream. It's in the upper section. And in this particular one, there's been some habitat work. There's gravel in the bottom, check. There's large woody debris along the stream banks, check. There's some riparian vegetation, check. So, that should be pretty good for fish. But as we know is that there's different ways in which this can be done. So this is another stretch of Brooklyn Creek. It's also a straight stretch. It's in another area. But also it has gravel in the bottom, check. It has large woody debris on the stream banks, check. And it has riparian vegetation. But it also has, some meanders in the stream. It also has some benches to create pools and ripples to allow for aeration of the stream. So a little bit different. So there are ways in which to make the stream less of an eyesore and more of an asset. One of the things that Brooklyn Creek is able to do is we're able to do a lot of fundraising. And so over the years, this is the amounts that we were able to raise. As I said, we're a very small organization. And the funding ranged amounts from about $1,000 to $80,000. And then Town of Comox would contribute, on average, $30,000 to $50,000 a year. And also, we had the tremendous cooperation of the park staff to do the work. In addition to that, we had many local businesses who would provide in-kind contributions, maybe double our order of which we purchased, so that we were able to do the works that we wanted to do. This particular illustration just shows a gravel slinger delivering the gravel into the stream so that we didn't have to haul it by wheelbarrow from the truck. So some of the things that we can do, as I said, is that we can do the fundraising. Another thing the volunteers can do is that they can recruit and engage volunteers. And so over the years, we've done a variety of different activities. We have a list of about 70 volunteers that would like to come out. They're willing to come out per day. We don't want to spend, work them more than maybe 4 hours at a time. And, on a typical day in planting, you can have about 20 volunteers plant about 400 trees and shrubs. And they typically do this work after the major construction work has occurred in the late summer. Another activity that we do is gravel nourishment. Because the stream is in an urban watershed, there's little opportunity for natural gravel nourishment of the stream, and both trout and salmon require it for spawning. So we have added gravel at different times to assist that. And we get a lot of cooperation from some private landowners as well to gain access to the stream. There's also invasive species removal that volunteers can do. There's nothing, there's lots to choose from. There's English ivy, there's lambium, there's giant hogweed, there's yellow iris. You get the idea. Another thing that we do with volunteers, and we're actually starting it in a couple of weeks, is we set up a smolt fence every spring and have it operational until about mid-June. And with that, this will be our 10th year this year where we record the smolts. Now, it isn't entirely accurate. We do try to, collect as many of the smolts as we can. We count them through. We've had as few as 200 and as many as almost 4,000 smolts exiting the stream. Some of the challenges that we have is that if there's a very large, storm event, then the water will overflow the banks of the smolt fence, and so we know we're missing some of the fish. And then another thing that we can do as volunteers is that we can do public education and awareness. And so we put together this brochure. We pooled our $2,000 with two other nonprofit groups, two other stewardship groups. And then we had the kind assistance of the graphic the artist from Project Watershed. And we put together this brochure. And also we have the poster as well for another $2,000 to give on those. And what we do with these now is that we deliver these to the residents that border the stream so that they're aware. The whole point of this particular brochure is to encourage people to recognize that they live in a watershed, that things that go down the storm drain end up in the watershed, and that there are things that they could do to make everything better. But not everything is rosy, and so there are some challenges with Brooklyn Creek. And so we still have challenges with water flows, as typical for any urban stream. And also the fact that you have many of the storm drains will then direct their flow into the creek. And so in this illustration, the purple lines show you the storm drain markings, and then they all end up in the Brooklyn Creek watershed. And then also, there's other challenges in that a lot of the creek is actually on private lands, and so what private individuals do on their lands, what we're hoping is that we could this type of activity might be best approached through education and awareness, making people aware of the asset that they have in their own backyard. And there's also challenges in the headwaters region, as with most streams, is that you always want to make sure that there's water flow consistently. And so we don't oppose any type of development, but we just encourage that development be done in a way that it would still allow for water to reach the stream. And we do have some concerns. In this illustration on the right-hand side, it shows you a roadway, but underneath is a culvert that's about 330 meters long. And that was, is where Brooklyn Creek is. And that was installed in 2012. So it wasn't something that was done many, many years ago. It was just done fairly recently. And if you look at the valuation that Tim just mentioned earlier, so this is for water conveyance, but at 330 meters times $2,700 a meter, it maybe suggests a potential value there. So as I said, Brooklyn Creek we're a small society. We don't own any land, so we like to work cooperatively with people who do, or have access to it. And we're very fortunate to have a great relationship with the Town of Comox, and to share a vision of protecting the stream as a natural asset. And we look forward to working with other local governments in the area to achieve similar goals. Okay, so then I'm just going to pass it over to Mike.
Okay, my name is Marvin Kamenz. I'm municipal planner and subdivision approving officer for the Town of Comox. Presentation is broken down into three components, looking at three different sessions of watersheds. First being just a quick pick up on the lower Brooklyn Creek, then going to Queen's Ditch watershed, and then going to the middle of Brooklyn Creek, and a new urban design concept plan that we're working on. What you'll notice as I go through the presentation is there's a progression. Lower Brooklyn Creek is really about environmental protection. Queen's Ditch is about rainwater management. And the urban design concept is really about a package of ecological services. As you've heard, Lower Brooklyn Creek is really a good news story. We have a well-defined channel, 1/3 of it's a ravine. As a result, yes, development did occur, but there's large areas of either natural land that was left beside the stream or land that was relatively undisturbed. So, and yes, it's used for stormwater management, a very strong equal mandate on environmental protection. So there's something there, there's something to be saved that was highly valuable. And that protection ranged not just in terms of fish habitat and enhancement of fish habitat, but also given the ravine, steep slope stability, and more recently as riparian area as a nature corridor. Now move to a different watershed just to the northeast of Lower Brooklyn Creek, Queen's Ditch and the Northeast Comox Stormwater Management Plan. This one's a bit of a different watershed. On the slides, what you'll see is between the two red arrows, that is the Queen's Ditch. It runs from D&D, CFD Comox, out to the Strait of Georgia. The stretch that it's running through is primarily flatland, lowlands. The land to the north or to the upper part of the slide is CFD Comox, so there's quite a steep grade going up that. And then the lands to the west, the blue dot, is Town of Comox. Majority of this basin is within electoral area B. It's a former marsh. It's flat, low-lying. Result, mean at high tides and the winter storms, there's widespread surface flooding. Queen's Ditch was actually put in back in 1946 as a combined sanitary storm sewer for the base. Of course, sewer was slowly shut off. Right now in this area, in the electoral area B, there is no comprehensive stormwater management service, so it's a mix, patchwork. You have Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. They're providing ditches with the sole purpose of draining the actual roads. You have private ditches draining private property, and then you have D&D Queen's Ditch. A number of the private ditches actually connect into the D&D ditch. And back in 1997, a really important thing, one of the property owners with ditches connecting into Queen's Ditch sued D&D. They sued them for flood damage. D&D was paying 50% at fault for failure to maintain the ditch. This sent a very clear message that flooding is a very real concern. There is real flood damage occurring. Also, that if you have a storm sewer service, there is a real liability risk. The Town of Comox in the blue area, it's about 80 hectares, has been identified for development, and it drains through the Knight Road ditch directly into Queen's Ditch. When we started looking at development in this area, the one common phrase from the downslope landowners were the town was going to be sued. We were going to be sued if we increased the amount of groundwater. We were going to be sued if we decreased the amount of groundwater. We were going to be sued if we increased the amount of surface water. If we decreased the amount of surface water. Some farmers actually use the surface water to kill pests. So they flood their fields on purpose. So they actually want the flooding in the fall. There's no one consistent message in terms of how the system of overreach is supposed to function. First week of developers came in. One of the big things of any local government employee is the services that you provide, you try to minimize liability exposure. So, didn't take Einstein to figure out, yes, there's been a suit, there's a lawsuit, we don't want to be sued, by the developer's engineer, history of flooding, that whatever they did, they had to make sure there wasn't any increase in flood damage. We pointed to a section of our subdivision bylaw that essentially said, you can't just assume because a ditch, because a pipe is there that you can connect into it that it has the capacity. You have to determine the capacity, and if it doesn't have the capacity to service your development, you have to come up with an alternative engineering design. So, information was relayed to the development's engineer. The development's engineer, first proposal came back with a detention pond connected to the Knight Road ditch, which connected directly to the ditch. So one of the questions the staff had was, well, that's really nice. So you found out that Queen's Ditch actually has capacity to service your development. And the answer that we got back, well, we did look at Queen's Ditch. And the conversation shifted to what size detention pond you want, that the town wanted to have. You say the process stopped right there. In hindsight, it's not that surprising that we reached that point because the town, we don't have a large engineering firm. We only have an useful engineer on staff for the last 10 years for primarily the surface operation in public works. We took the stand of a consulting engineer, professional engineer, as not only using things that met our standards, or some of the servicing standards, but that it was safe. It would work. Nobody would have a problem with it. That's very misguided. Consulting engineer, engineering association, they're prohibited from setting a standard. They don't set safety. They'll argue with you if you say that you want it to conform to a certain standard, but then when push comes to shove, you say, well, great, what's a safe standard? Say, that's not our role. You set the level of safety, you set a quantitative standard, we design to what you set. And the methodology at that time was solely focused on detention ponds. The idea being that you have increased runoff when you do development, you take that runoff, put it into a detention pond, you detain the flows such that your flow rates of discharge post-development match pre-development, and then you can get into what storm event. Is it a 1 or 2 year event that you're matching 10, 100, higher the number of years of larger storm. So the action the town took was it did detailed terms of reference for stormwater management. Development group felt that they could undertake that stormwater management. They hired a consulting engineer, so we'll do it in accordance with the terms of reference. Terms of reference are very explicit. It says as a result of development, there can be no increase in downstream flood damage. So 1 p.m. stamp on that statement. No significant change in downslope groundwater. Again, requires a p.m. stamp to that statement. No negative impacts on downslope environmentally sensitive areas, fish habitat. Of course, there's fish also, as well as the agricultural lands downstream. So that also requires a professional biologist certification stamp and professional agronomist. Stormwater management plan came out in 3 phases, 3 reports. It's going to give an outline of what each report did, and then some of the things that really struck me as a layperson. I'm trained as a planner, I'm not a municipal engineer. There are some things that I assumed were given, that they were just doing automatically, which I found out to my surprise is not the case. So the first report was to find out how much rain is falling in that watershed and where is it going. Typically what will happen is they will take a design storm event on a representative or aggregate watershed and they'll use that data. So it's a hypothetical situation. In this case, what they were required to do was to identify a watershed that had the same rainfall characteristics and topography as the Queen's Ditch, that had climatic data, that could tell if rainfall was in the past, and also had flow data. So what they actually did get is we had 42-year hourly rainfall data for the watershed that was used. We also required that they had 100% forest recovery as a pre-development conditions as opposed to whatever the conditions were as of the time of the start of the study. Second part of the study would be determining if the land was developed in accordance with the official community plan, what would be the impact on stormwater, and then what would be the infiltration targets and detention targets to mitigate any impact on downslope lands. Again, even though we had the data on an hourly basis, we had to push to make sure that they did the modeling on an hourly basis, as opposed and on a continuous basis all the way up to a 1 in 100-year storm event, as opposed to just modeling a 1 in 10 and then a 1 in 100. Because again, a huge variation between those two. You can post can be pre on those two areas, and it's not automatic that all the storms in between post is going to be pre. There's also a requirement that they include climate change, so climate change is factored in. Phase 3 is the detailed specifications, so that's telling the engineers when they're looking at infiltration galleries, how to size the infiltration galleries, how to build them, what the inlet's going to look like, same for the retention ponds. There is a requirement that all infiltration galleries and retention ponds have to be on town land. So they owned and operated by the town, and the real reason for this is there is no plan B. So if the development goes in, these infiltration galleries go in, there is no secondary pipe that if things don't work the way that they're supposed to, the overflow can go into the secondary pipe. We would have to rip up roads, which is going to be prohibitively expensive. Also because of that, it has a adaptive management plan. And so the ponds and the infiltration gallery specs are designed to be easily modified so we can increase or decrease by anywhere between 10 and 20% the performance of those ponds. So if we want more water release, we want less water release without ripping up the roads. There's a requirement for the town to set up its own plan annexation, actually in the Queens Ditch watershed, to provide climatic data going into the future, and that the performance or the amount of release from each detention pond and infiltration gallery be monitored, so that we can do continuous modeling, and then we can actually see, okay, when it's built and you have the actual rainfall events, how are the systems performing? Are they performing as they were modeled? And if not, then they're adjusted to make sure they're reflecting real life conditions. We were just finishing up this project, and then we started getting into the urban design for the Anderton corridor in the middle of Brooklyn Creek. So the slide you've seen before, the middle of Brooklyn Creek, it's an electoral area B's between the two lines right there. And our corridor plan, approximately 150 acres in the gold area. So part of the creek definitely runs through it. So we figured, okay, fine, we're doing the Northeast Comox Stormwater Master Plan. It seems to be well received. Well, when we got something, it's a nice template. We started the engineers working on for the Anderton corridor. Said, give us the designs, give us where the detention ponds are, give us the sizes, the infiltration galleries. Then we're going to overlay roads. Then we're going to overlay land use. The regional strategy requires relatively high densities compared to past developments, and off we go. That was all going quite fine until Tim Franklin. We were working with Tim, and so ongoing conversation, that's all really nice. He releases the report, and we read it, and the two sentences that really struck were the package of ecological services concept refers to the combined range of uses desired by the community. Thus, a strategic plan supports this diversity will appear worthwhile to the greatest number of people. And by ecological services, at that time we realized ecological services weren't an add-on. They were core services. So, environmental protection, it's not an add-on. It's mandated by the province for fish habitat protection. Active and passive recreation. Almost every municipality has parks, they have rec centers, so it's a core service. Stormwater, along with water, sewer, roads, take up the bulk of the municipal budget. So once it starts translating mentally into our minds that they're a core service, start looking at it differently in terms of, okay, if we're going to have to, we're providing these bread and butter core services in this community, how can we do it better? Given the second sentence, the idea that the strategic plan that provides diversity in the services is going to get the most amount of support. And anybody who's been a planner knows that when you're sitting in a room designing a plan openly for hours, one of the things you really, really want to do is make sure that you try to get something that people are going to like so that they're going to support. Nothing like coming up with a really bad plan and going to a public hearing. So we rethought it, and we stopped work on the stormwater management plan, and we changed the focus to this idea of the package of ecological services and how can we get the best package for that neighborhood. So the best core service delivered, in another sense. What that meant, we redesigned where the Parkland and school locations are going to be. Parkland School, great big green open spaces. If we stick them, or if we even have a stream running through a park, it's a higher amenity than one that doesn't. So why wouldn't we put them together? Same with our greenway alignment, and actually get the people into the parks, get the people into the riparian areas, support riparian efficient enhancement works. In the upper areas here, Brooklyn Creek, the channel is actually fragmented. So what we're looking at there is creating one channel. That way we get more water. So we're getting more water in the summer, and we get the cooler water in the summer for fish habitat. Detention pond location and design. There's going to be 5 to 6 detention ponds. They're going to take up a lot of space. We redesigned those detention ponds to create essentially almost like mini lakes. So high aesthetic value, and then relocated them to the best of our ability along the actual corridor, so that we're increasing the amenity within the riparian area. And the last part of the puzzle is then taking our higher density land uses and laying them along this corridor, this expanded corridor, with the idea being these are public services paid for with public funds. Therefore, why would we ensure that they have maximum number of members of the public have ready access to this? So that plan is probably going to be coming out in the fall. And what's really interesting is it's the exact same staff that worked on Northeast Comox, that worked on Anderton corridor initially, and we didn't put 2 and 2 together until somebody else comes in, writes a report, and says, you know what's going on in the lower reaches